So did they end the trilogy with a bang or a whimper? Let's rant about it. All right, today we're looking at The Strangers, Chapter 3, directed by Rennie Harlin, released in 2026. All right, so I'm going to have to spoil The Strangers, Chapter 2 a little bit in my description of what Chapter 3 is about. So warning, spoilers if you haven't seen Chapter 2. So this film pretty much takes off right after The Strangers Chapter 2, where our hero Maya, who's gone through all the hell in the world, just killed one of the strangers, one of the female strangers, who ultimately was kind of one of the main two that kicked off everything, and then they brought in the third one. So the film is basically the conclusion of everything that we've seen before. It's the final showdown. Maya's trying to survive this time. She's very nervous about the authorities in the town, basically any town folk in this small town, and then obviously the two remaining strangers left, kind of on high alert to look for them. So she's on the run, trying to survive, and without spoiling anything else in this film, it's basically her time to try to either get revenge or survive or whatever. So that's ultimately what the conclusion of this saga is all about. All right, so I do have a soft spot in my heart for Rennie Harlin. He did direct A Nightmare on Elm Street 4. And so anybody who's directed a Nightmare on Elm Street film automatically kind of doesn't necessarily get a free pass for me, but I don't automatically hate them just because I enjoy those films. But how the fuck did a studio look at this mega script of like 3 films and say, yeah, we're going to give you money and you're going to film all fucking 3 of them and you're going to chop them up and we are going to release them all despite the box office returns or the critical score or the audience score. We are going to release these fuckers no matter what. I have no idea how he made that happen. It's a fucking miracle. I will say this film isn't atrociously bad. I had a friend who watched this earlier in the day and was kind of warning me to say, your review is probably going to be fucking insane and you're screaming at the camera and shit because of how terribly bad this film is. So maybe that set my expectations kind of in one direction or another, but ultimately, do you hear my cat being weird? All right, whatever, we're keeping it in. The cat is going crazy right now. Yeah, so he said it was going to be a crazy nuts experience. And I said, it couldn't top what they did in 2, could it? Because they took a very wild swing with one aspect of the film, like the midpoint of chapter 2. And he's like, oh, just wait. And this film, I think you could categorize it as taking a swing in regards to a plot point that they decide to go with this particular film. But for me, it didn't feel like a wild swing. Like, obviously, I think it was a weird direction to go. Like, I probably wouldn't have seen this coming or naturally saw a progression there. But I think they do enough within the story and kind of setting it up to really get you to understand why they're doing what they're doing. And maybe I'll do a spoiler review a little bit later to talk about it. But to me, it just felt kind of like, why are you doing this? Like, okay, I get it. It makes sense. But it's not like bonkers wild. Like, why the fuck are you doing this? This doesn't make any sense like chapter 2 did. So very much not in the same vein for me, I would have to say. So, and yeah, so, I mean, the performances are, the same. There's nothing new in this film. It's all basically the same. Maya's the same character. The strangers are the same characters, even though the one big thing about all of this, which they don't seem to understand about what was so effective about that original film way back in the day, back in the 2000s, which to me isn't that me back in the day is early 90s. So for you watching this, maybe the early 2000s is back in the day, or you're just born or something. But you didn't know the backstory of these killers. They were just people that showed up and they just killed you because you were there. And that was very effective. No real motive. Like, there was a bunch of mystery around it, and it was spooky, and it really got to people. So they decided, like, hey, yeah, we like that and all, but how about if we find out why the fuck they did it and their backstory and all that shit? And let's stretch it out over 2 movies. Because in Strangers Chapter 1, essentially is a remake of the original film with a little bit extra there, but Chapters 2 and Chapter 3 goes to the place where nobody cared or nobody wanted to go, and really dives into the backstory about who the strangers are and why they're doing what they're doing. They kind of get into motivation a little bit, but they give you the backstory of Tamara and all that stuff. And like, who cares? This is not why the original film was effective or why we care. Like, we like the motiveless, like, we're doing this because you were here. And then, of course, in every film, they do a variation of at least that line, which completely just mitigates its effectiveness. Once you see it sequentially over and over again, it's like, because you're here, it's like, okay, it's like, but now we get some backstory and it's become less effective, and like, who the fuck cares? So, yeah, I think the diminishing returns on these films definitely, is really high in this one. And, yes, ultimately, I'd say this trilogy putters out in this film. Like, again, I didn't get mad or angry at this film. It was just more of like, this is how they're going to end all this. I mean, what they presented before wasn't good at all. And of course, why would I expect them to really do something amazing? And if it was a planned trilogy and they're like planning all this, you would assume this would escalate to this super cool climatic thing. And it's really not that. I mean, obviously it has a conclusion, but it's just, to me, it comes across as kind of flat and matter of fact. It's not thrilling, or anything like that. You don't get a sense of like, I'm ready for the blood to rain because of all the bad things that happened to Maya and things like that, or anything like that. Like, it just comes across as incredibly dull and not really building towards an escalation that you're really rooting for or terrified for our character or anything like that. Like, there's no, even they have the character say something like, I have no emotions. Like, you feel that as an audience member, you just have no emotion going into the final act of this trilogy. And again, it just really felt like, even though, yes, this was legitimately planned out to be a long story, a 3-movie arc, like they originally planned it for that, it just doesn't feel like that. Like, it doesn't naturally feel, from what we saw in Chapter 1 to Chapter 2 and now in Chapter 3, that this feels like a natural progression of the story and a natural conclusion, which ultimately is like very disappointing. And I even came in with very low expectations because the first 2 in this trilogy were just that terrible. So I couldn't even really meet kind of lowered expectations to get some joy or thrill out of this one. It was just bad. Again, not offensively bad, not upsetting bad, yeah. So that's kind of where I am on this film. All right, well, I'm going to end up giving this film a 2 out of 5 stars. Not the worst film of the year so far. Looking at you, Silent Hill. I don't know if anything will ever top that film. That's like top 10 all-time worst films I've ever seen. So please like, comment, and subscribe. I remembered the word subscribe this time. That's a very important one. We want to build those sub counts. If you care or whatever, do whatever you want. I'm not seeing any comments, so I'm screaming into the void here. Just tell me to go fuck myself in the comments or anything. I don't care. Just some engagement would be, again, cool. Or not, whatever. It's okay. All right, well, I appreciate you checking this out and go see the film. You'll be one of 10 people that will this weekend. And then you can say, hey, I was maybe even like half the box office return for this film. All right. Well, if I don't see you again, as always, bye forever.